Hi, this is Muho from Osaka. Last week I read the first of 5 questions by a person from Egypt, 20 years old, who's been on his spiritual quest since he was 13. He's never grasped the once and for all real answer, big enlightenment. And he feels maybe he should look for a teacher. Well, I recommend to find a teacher really in the flesh, so to speak, to really meet with a teacher in real life. But if people, it helps them to, for example, sit on Zoom with me and ask me questions on YouTube and listen to these videos, that's fine. But it should not replace a real person-to-person relationship. I would like to read the first question, although it's not super short. I would like to read it once more and then I explain what I answered to that question. First question. It is discussed in the old Pali Canon that in order to get rid of suffering, one must overcome any desire for an object of the senses, along with any desire for existence or non-existence. The way this is done is by undertaking to see the disgust in beautiful objects, and vice versa, for ugly objects, along with, of course, giving up worldly life and becoming a celibate monk who eats only once per day. This, however, does not seem to be practiced by the Zen tradition. In that sense, how is Zen related to these practices? Does Zen practice include having to train oneself to subdue the mind for greed, hate and delusion? I understand there are degrees of being hateful, greedy or deluded, but does Zen aim to eradicate these so that the Zen student reaches a state where they are not affected by these things anymore? That was the first question, and my answer to this question was to use a metaphor. The Pali Canon emphasizes quitting the game once and for all without returning to the table. So you stop to chase after objects, you stop to flee from things that you want to avoid. You quit the game. In Zen, we take a break from the game, but later return to the table to play with different rules, i.e. to live as bodhisattvas rather than attain nirvana. So in Zen it's not about your personal liberation. And of course also in Zen, the less attached you are, the less you will suffer. So you will try to reduce your attachments. But in a way you could say that living as a bodhisattva means to stay attached to the world and to stay attached to living beings, even going so far to postpone your own liberation for the sake of the others, which from the Theravada perspective would still be an attachment. Therefore, total extinction of desires is not emphasized so much in Zen. But after taking a break from the game and playing with new rules, which are not based on the ego, usually desires grow weaker naturally and gradually. And the new rules with those the bodhisattvas play, that would be, for example, what you find in Dogen's Bodhisattva Shishoho chapter. Bodhisattva Shishoho is, I think, sometimes translated as 4 ways of bodhisattvas to embrace with living beings, to embrace the living beings or to socialize with living beings, to relate to living beings. And those 4 ways are giving, kind words, cooperation, and doji, identity action, is one English translation that I found. Doji, making oneself equal or realizing there's no difference. Anyway, let's proceed to the second question. Can Zen even be practiced without a teacher? That's a question I talked about last month. Having a teacher seems to be central to Zen practice, but I don't understand the place of the teacher. Does he need to be an alive person with whom I frequently meet, or simply any teacher that I can contact through the internet or similar methods? What does the teacher give the student in Zen? So you find a detailed answer to that question in one of my videos from last month. But what I wrote to this person is the following. The teacher is important to tell the student exactly all those things that he does not want to hear. He is like a mirror that reflects the student's ego. Whenever the student thinks that he has gained or understood something, the teacher will take it away from him or her, of course. So with a good teacher, the student will understand more and more how he or she does not understand anything. And the problem with having a teacher on the internet, on YouTube for example, that you can always pick and choose whatever you want. And whenever the teacher starts to go into a direction that might hurt your ears, you don't want to listen to that. It's very easy to switch off. So on the internet you always get those teachings from those teachers that you would like to hear. In a way you could say that the teacher enforces the bubble that you're already in. You're already inside a bubble, and only those teachers that enforce the bubble you listen to. But the reason you have a bubble is to burst, the reason you have a teacher is to make that bubble burst. But I think it's very, very difficult to find that teacher on the internet. Find him in real life. Third question. Zazen is often discussed as being the center of Zen practice. So there's Zen Buddhism and at the center, at the core of Zen, you find Zazen, the practice of sitting. However, I often encounter different instructions for Zazen, which include counting the breath or following it or just sitting. Is it necessary to learn to stay with counting the breath or following it before being able to do proper shkantasa? I've also heard that there are special practices that are given specifically from teacher to student. Is this true, or does shkantasa always stay the same thing? I've talked about that a little bit in the Zoom classes. So if you go to the recordings of the Monday Zoom classes, I think I talked about that to a certain extent. What I wrote to the person is the following. Shkantasa means just sitting, but it is more difficult to just sit than it sounds. It's actually, well, the most important thing, to just sit. We always want to do something extra. And counting the breath and concentrating on this or that, working on a koan, is actually easier because you have something extra. That is why different teachers sometimes use different approaches, and it can be helpful to decide for only one of them, especially at the beginning. So if it helps you in the beginning to just watch the breath, that's fine with me. Although in Antaiji I told people to just sit. And when you sit for as long as, I don't know, sometimes 15 hours a day in Antaiji, that alone is already a koan. You don't need any extra koans. You don't need any extra help. How do I do that? 15 hours on a cushion in one day. What am I doing here in the first place? You already got something to work on there. Maybe you have time for the fourth question. The way I understand Shkantasa from my limited practice is that we are always in the situation where it is good or bad. We suffer when we cling to the situation or try to reject it. And Shkantasa pushes us to let go, because we are put in a situation where we cannot do anything else to escape the suffering. If this understanding is true, then it means one cannot really gain anything from Zen practice, since it is a continual process of letting go. I see some value in that, because I have often found myself in situations where I'm suffering not only from circumstances, but also from my quest to eliminate suffering itself. Exactly. At these moments, I come to understand the meaning of Zen is practiced for nothing. The meaning of Zen is practiced for nothing, and all you can do is only let go. But I doubt that this is all there is to Zen practice. After all, till now I don't really know what means to let go of the self. So what does it mean to let go of the self? Unfortunately, we're out of time. I will continue and tell you next time.